Hello and welcome back to From the Be-All End, the Burnley podcast, and this is the debrief after Burnley 0, Manchester United 1. A better performance, but in the end of the day, still the same amount of points in return for it. Let's get the team's impressions. Andrew Greaves, Chris Borden, Paul Woodhouse and Justin Connolly, full squad here. Let's kick off with Justin Connolly. Justin, you were on Turf Moor and took all that in. What were your impressions of Saturday's
Yes,
performance?
I was. Well, ultimately it was a disappointment, I think, because I thought, obviously, this is not a vintage Manchester United side that we were up against. It was a very, very typical Manchester United performance, I thought. Be absolutely shit for 90 minutes and rely on one of your superstars to pull something out of the top drawer, which you seem to do very, very often. I thought the goal was a bit of a disappointment as well. I thought Bayer and Charlie Taylor could have done a little bit better with that, just clip ball into the box there. But it was a fantastic finish, isn't it? And when you get a goal like that against you, you sort of think the gods are against you. And it turned out to be. The first half, I thought, was a fantastic performance. I thought we played really, really well, created some great chances, hit the post, forced a good save out of Vanana.
Yeah.
I thought it was superb. The second half, we really started to look like we'd run out of ideas after about 10 minutes. I'm surprised he didn't change it before he did. I think we got to about 70 minutes before he did anything apart from the sort of injury substitution in the first half. And I just think he talks a lot about progress and getting better every game. I'm not sure it was a better performance than it was against Forest, because I think Forest were a tougher proposition than Manchester United were. But it feels like it's going in the right direction to me, and it feels like it's only a matter of time. But I really want to see some points.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more with that. With Justin, I think everything that we thought would happen happened. I mean, Woody said, they've still got players who could come here and get goals, which they did. They did. I mean, it's the only thing Fernandes has done. I mean, at one point, Fernandes was in the right back position as they got like 6 across the back. And that's after we'd run out of ideas. But I agree with Justin. I think that first half was superb. And you just think, it's literally the fourth official's board has just gone up when Fernandes scores that. And you just think, get to half time. We'd kind of had the let off with a goal that was disallowed. A word for the referee. I mean, we were very, very critical of the referee at Nottingham Forest. I actually thought the referee, Tony Hartington, I think he's called. I thought he had a superb game. He went. I didn't have a clue what the VAR was for the goal that was chalked off, but he went to the screen and he went, you know what? Yeah, Ireland is interfering with James Trafford. Rule it out. Fantastic. So I thought the officials were good. So we'd had a bit of a let off, and it still worries me that we can't really defend set pieces. We rode as luck, but I mean Chris Casper kind of alluded to them being pretty poor. That is a shockingly shite Man United side. I mean, when Hannibal, who was poor last season here for Birmingham, is their best player, the best player in a United shirt, you're in trouble. When your second best player is Johnny Evans, you're in trouble. It's that lack of clinicalness. And, I've said to a few people today, Foster plays, we don't lose that game. It's as simple as that. Because I think Foster bullies that Man United backline, and perhaps there's a different dynamic. I think it's clear that Amdouni's not a number 9. I was all for Amdouni playing number 9. In hindsight, I'd have probably either played Jay or got Jay on a bit sooner. I thought when it ticked to 60 minutes, I thought, right, now's the time.
Definitely.
get a bit of momentum, and it just left it a little bit too late. Benson again could have done with an extra 10 minutes because he was just starting to wind things up, and I don't know. I think there's definite progress. I think it is a better performance than Forest. I think we were sloppy for 30 minutes against Forest. I think there is progress, but still only 1 point on the board. But I think it's coming, and I think what Sheffield United's capitulation against Newcastle, I can't see us being in a position where we would allow that to happen. So that's one team that we're automatically better than and better equipped than. We've just got to find two more to be better equipped than.
I think it sort of it shaped up as we suspected it might. We knew that Burnley's possession football was capable of causing United problems and capable of creating openings, and we suggested on Monday night, can Burnley be clinical with them? So I think Amdouni did all he could with the header. It's a decent stop. The one he's unlucky with the one against the post, but really, if we're being critical, he's got to take that. And if Burnley go 1-0 up, against like I say, as poor a United side I've seen in my lifetime, they're absolutely dreadful. But again, on Monday night, we said that any one of the stars is capable, in a second of conjuring up a moment of genius. And Fernandes, who was that peripheral, he didn't even referee the game like he usually does. He just an absolutely sensational finish. It's not in the Van Persie league, but up there. But like I say, I agree with Greaves about the referee. I think there was a point in the first period where Højlund goes down, moaning and wanting a free kick because someone's breathed on him, and the referee was having none of it. He didn't sort of suck up to the big characters in the United side, and I'd say the goal that's ruled out is justly ruled out. Although United fans will point to Haaland's the other week, and again we've got this inconsistency, haven't we? It's all right. Premier League referees coming out a couple of weeks later saying, "Oh yeah, we apologise for that incident." Well, it's costing teams points all the while. But promising. Again, I remember speaking to Roy Coyle years ago, and he, when they were first getting the Opta-stats through, etc., and he would, 500 passes was a good performance for a possession side. Burnley have knocked up nigh on 700 passes last night against an elite club. He'd scored 3 times in Munich in midweek. So to put that level of of passing together suggests that they're on the right track. But it's just to me they still look a little shy in the final third. They need someone to sort of take the initiative. Really, they play some lovely fluid football up until that final third. Couple of times, a couple of inventive moments, but beyond that, like I say, ran out of ideas, and the changes needed to be much earlier. And why shift Koleosho over to the right hand side to accommodate Trezor when Goodmanson went? I mean, Dalot couldn't cope, could he? Pure and second, a World Cup fullback in a week that just couldn't live with him, and we've switched him. So,
Reguilon did though. Reguilon had him in his pocket.
Absolutely. Burnley reject Reguilon. Yeah.
Woody, what were your thoughts?
I think it's a testament to how well we played in that first half, to how United adapted in that second half. They basically parked the bus in a way that even Daesh would have been embarrassed to do it. I watched that second half again. They went man for man. You saw even Rashford dropping in to the full back role, looking very unimpressed by it as well. But they were dropping. There were 6 behind the ball, and it was nigh on impossible to break them down. It obviously looked like we didn't have a clue how to break them down. And then when they pushed us out wide, we had 2 or 3 instances of Trezor airing down that right-hand side. And then I didn't see a single other Claret shirt going anywhere near that box.
Yeah,
I think that goes to show how much we either miss Foster or somebody playing up front. And you've got to at least arrive. You've got to arrive. But I think that first half is arguably one of the best performances I've seen from a Burnley side we were able to control a so-called top 6 side in terms of possession and the half overall. And I was extremely impressed with that, especially on second viewing as well. But like everybody said, that doesn't translate to points. We're looking now at a week where, had we had a different vote decision Monday, and things had gone slightly better for us and we hadn't had 2 worldies, we'd have had 4 points. We're looking at 1 instead. And that's the thing that's obviously slightly worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, that first half, that first 45 minutes, definitely the best half of the season anyway. And the best has been for a long, long time in the Premier League, I think. And the disappointment was that, the second half with all that possession, a lot of it was very predictable, wasn't it? We didn't really push United with that possession. We didn't ask enough questions, really.
No.
And I just wonder, we're into the realms of like, have our solutions caused new problems here? But with the way the midfield is set up, Brownhill isn't that midfielder who breaks from the midfield and really causes an attacking problem. He's solidified it, and it was right to bring him in, but he isn't that kind of player. Maybe Sander Berger is more of that kind of player who could get in and create something from the central area. But we're so dependent on the wingers creating, aren't we? As we were last season, to be fair, and they delivered, Zaroury and Benson, most of the time. But I just look at it and think like, right, we're probably going to get quite a few games where we have loads of possession because, maybe when some of the teams we're expected to beat or hoping to get results against, there's no one we're expected to beat, but teams we would hope to get results against they might sit back like that as United did in the second half. And then in that case, what have we got, without centre forward?
Yeah, I do. And again, that's why, we were kind of discussing it was a bit negligent not to bring a left back in. I do think the other trick we missed is not backing up that centre forward, because
absolutely
we will lose Foster to the African Cup of Nations in January, I think, as well, at the same time as we'll lose Zaroury. So you're taking 2 bits out of there. Jay, for me, he needs a little bit longer. He almost needs 10 minutes to get into the speed of the game. And when you're bringing him on so late, you then not got a chance for him to get into it. But I was really impressed with Brun Larson when he came on. I mean, he put a ball in, just crying out for anybody. I mean, he's almost a Barnes-esque player you want in there. If Barnes is playing, that whip.
I was just going to say, that's the guy we needed.
It's Barnes, isn't it? It's Barnes versus Rovers. All over. But Brun Larson quietly impressed me when he's come on.
Yeah,
he's very, very tidy. And the fears were around him not playing a lot of football and things like, can he adapt? I think we're going to see a bit more of him. And I almost wonder whether now we're getting to the point where we rest Koleosho for a game. It might be Newcastle, it might be Chelsea at home. And then you try and get a Koleosho on after 60 minutes and get that impact at the end, because he does run out of steam. As you'd expect for a young lad, he does run out of steam.
Yeah, he does. But also, I mean, one of the problems we had last night, I think, is that when Plan A didn't work, we didn't sort of the Plan B was to bring different players on, wasn't it, rather than sort of adapt to the game. I thought United started pushing up the back line a little bit, and I don't know whether you could pick this up on TV, but Trezor and Koleosho were making so many runs along the line as Al-Dakil and Bay were passing it between themselves, but nobody had the balls just to clip one over the top for them to chase, just to see if we could get behind them in that way. And it was crying out for a sort of something a bit different. Maybe we'd have been told not to do that, which is fair enough, but it needs a sort of an adaptation to what they do, and we didn't seem to do that last night. I thought that was a bit disappointing. A different approach. It was all safety first, wasn't it? I mean, I know we've criticised them in most of the games that they've played so far for being too brave, but they seemed just a little bit too timid to me last night, and that sort of cost us a little bit, I think.
Second half, though, definitely. At the end of the match, I was thinking. It was quite a shock when Trafford went up for that corner, because we didn't seem to be playing like we were desperate to get a goal to equalise and just, I mean, maybe we're just used to a style of football where when we are desperate for a point, we start launching it into the box and stuff, which, that's obviously not going to happen with this team. But you need something different, like you say. You need to mix it up and get some. There wasn't quite the urgency that you expected for a team that was 1-0 down against a United team that, let's be fair, has loads of injuries as well. We can slag them off, but they're badly weakened by injury. But they were an entirely beatable United team. And that was the feeling I sort of had at the end of the game was, yeah, really nice performance. Loads of encouraging signs, absolutely. But they were there for the taking yesterday. They really were.
That's the City way, isn't it, though? You look at them. I can remember them, when they were losing the Champions League final against Chelsea, and they constantly recycle it, the patience. They never look like they're like, the old school desperation football, get it forward. But then again, we ain't got the height. That's why we're so weak at defending set pieces.
Yeah.
So weak at taking set pieces.
Both of them are bad, aren't they?
Yeah. The threats, the aerial threat's not there anyway, but the actual delivery's been shocking to start with. But again, throwing Trafford up late on, it's purely another body, because he's not like he's not a big goalkeeper. He's not 6'4" lad who's going to make a nuisance of himself. Anyway, it's I say the
it looked like we'd put somebody from the social media team to go into the penalty area or something. He looks like a young lad, doesn't he?
Some kind of SEO expert, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, easy target. He won't go up for stuff in our 6-yard box. Why would he go up for anything in their 6-yard box? Let's get it right.
They tried a bit of invention, didn't they? With the couple of short corners, but it's. Brownhill's fancied himself as this set piece maestro for a few years, and I've never seen any evidence of him being a set piece expert. Full stop. And you look at, Johan was obviously off the pitch, but there's enough quality in those wide areas, especially when you bring your Bensons on and Zaroris to be able to deliver a good dead ball. It's not rocket science, is it?
So those sort of weird short corners they were doing kind of almost worked, didn't they? But when they tried to just not cross it, neither of them. I think Trezor took a few corners, didn't he, as well? But neither he or Brownhill could get it over the first man. But do they not practice corners? Surely that's like.
Well, we have got a set piece coach, haven't we? And I'm beginning to wonder whether that's a wasted wage, because we are. I presume that set piece coach is at both ends, defensive and attacking. But teams. All the teams we look to as kind of being brilliant at setting up, they all have a really good set of routines, and you miss that kind of, the old routine of Michael Duff running over the low ball for Jay behind him or someone just to kind of get in. I think Berger had one header over, and that's the only corner where we properly got it into the mix and got a Burnley head or a part of the body on it. But we were really crying out for that intensity post half time against Villa yesterday, because I felt if we'd come out with the intensity that we did against Villa, we said that against Spurs as well, didn't we? Come out with that intensity. United are a bit like they're caught cold, but it all went a bit passive. I think someone used the word passive, Simon. It might have been you on the WhatsApp group. Passive. No. It was just a bit too passive in that second half, and it needed to be a bit more active. And I think that's the issue. If we'd have gone at them. Johnny Evans and Lindelof at centre half, both fullbacks, I think, on a booking at that point. I don't know. Certainly, Dallow's on a booking at that point.
Well, Reguilon got one for asking for a yellow card, didn't he?
He did, didn't he? Yeah.
Just get at them. I love that.
Modern football.
Yeah.
Brilliant rule.
Get at them, yeah.
You want
you've got one. Third person to approach the referee gets a yellow card, I think it is. I've seen a referee counting the players and going, right, you weren't the first, you weren't the second, but you were the third. Them's the rules, yellow card.
He was moaning at Koleosho for a nothing, absolutely nothing malicious in it whatsoever. But yeah, he was running around the park like he'd committed a heinous crime, and starts flashing the imaginary yellow, and referee says, yeah, you can have one, son. So I love that.
Individual-wise, for me, my standout player was El Dakil. I thought he did really, really well at the back. What were other people's, not necessarily man of the match, but sort of standout performances that caught your eye? Woody?
Dakil was fantastic, I thought. But also I thought Trezor showed himself, especially in the first half, as a as a good bowler. Ramsey had a very good 70 minutes. Brun Larson looked good when he came on. Even Berger. I love first 20 minutes Berger and last 20 minutes Berger. It's that bit in between that it all kind of falls to bits a little bit, you know. But yeah, there were a lot of things. There were a lot of good performances. But I'm going with definitely De Keel with regards to that. I thought that was his most accomplished performance, and he looked very, very confident yesterday.
Are they fixed as the centre half pairing? Do we think now? As O'Shea had his chance and sort of for the time being?
I think so.
I think they're the best two. I think they're the best two centre backs. Whether it's the best pairing, you know, it's hard to sort. You know, without seeing everyone together. You know, Ekdal was impressive last season, but it's that recovery pace, isn't it? Al Keel's got that covers it in the Premier League, and that little intervention, you know, superb intervention to stop Hoyland. You know, he thinks he scored there, and he's like adding that physical. He's a young lad and he's growing into his body a bit. That adding physicality just to be aggressive and, you know, and compete. And he's adding that. He's striding out with the ball. We all know he can pass a football, but, you know, that's I think. The passing stats, he's more completed passes than United's three centre mids, which is staggering. It says all you need to know about United's midfield three. But yeah, he's
most of them sideways or backwards, though.
Yeah.
That is true.
Exactly. They're all to bear.
But we like straight lines, don't we?
Yeah. Are we going to have an episode without that?
No. We're gonna rename it the Straight Lines Podcast in honour of our friend Lyle from.
But one straight line I really like watching. I could watch over and over again. Is Jordan Bayer surging out of the back line deep into their off? I can't, not since Southampton Steve Davis, I think we had a centre half who could really do. He used to do that a lot, didn't he?
Yeah. The problem is, though, he keeps getting the ball nicked off him when he gets halfway. He's like, oh dear, I better turn round.
But I think but again, I think that is the evolution part of it. At the minute, he doesn't know when to do it and when not to do it, and he was successful on one of them, but then caught once or maybe twice before he got into his full stride. Once you get him into his full stride, he's very difficult to knock off that ball. But yeah, I'd agree with Woody in terms of a couple of the names he picked out. I thought Ramsey was superb for such a slight lad. He's quite strong, isn't he? You know, he uses the ball really well.
Quickness,
Brun Larson, we've
mentioned. Stuff fast, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's that is kind of going to keep teams on their toes. You know, you can imagine that against an Everton or the way Brentford played on Saturday as well. You know, that kind of interchange at the front, if we can just add that bit of quality, that final bit of quality, because again, at the final third, it's the final bit. Getting into the positions isn't a problem. It's that final bit of quality that's the difference between us scoring goals and then taking that extra touch. And we all said it, didn't we? You know, sometimes you just got to shoot. Sometimes you've just got to try and test the goalkeeper rather than this perfect kind of, you know, and every team does it at the minute. But everyone talks about plan A and plan B. Ange Postecoglou, his famous quote is always, what's plan B? It's just do plan A better. And I think that's probably a kind of Vincent Kompany philosophy. You know, it is just get different players in to execute the same plan. Einstein, of course, says insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I don't know whether you're a big Ange or you're Einstein, but we'll find out by Christmas, I'm sure.
Everyone loves Ange, don't they? There's some Celtic fan saying the other day on social media. So it's like he's been beamed down from outer space, and all of a sudden people are discovering him. You know, he's been doing exactly the same thing north of the border for 2 or 3 years and saying the same things, but obviously we only pay attention to the big six down here, and that's it.
Big picture, then. I mean, I think we all sort of agree on most of that performance stuff yesterday, but big picture, I mean, I was picking up from some Burnley fans on last night, starting to get a little bit antsy, 4 straight home defeats, a little bit worried. The 3 promoted teams seem to be falling apart at the bottom, or not falling apart, separating themselves from the others at the bottom. anyone worried, or are we all still in the? Greaves is shaking his head vigorously already here that he's got no worries whatsoever. Go on then, Greaves. Tell us why.
No, I've no worries, and I think Woody kind of summed it up, and it is, without getting all Sean Dyche, it's fine margins, isn't it? Had VAR gone our way, had we defended slightly, and it's all ifs and buts, of course it is, but we could have had 4 points on the board, and we've separated ourselves from the bottom three then. And this run of games we've been on, you've obviously got to play every team twice. So I think we judge it at the halfway stage. I think it's one of them where I can see progression. I'm happy. I came off the turf yesterday, pissed off that we'd not put United to the sword and got anything out of the game. But I'm not that much of an optimistic person usually. I'm a right miserable get. But I just see the players we've got and the talent we've got. And I just think as soon as we kind of get through Newcastle and Chelsea, that's the real test. And it's really, somebody said, a freakish run of fixtures at the start of the season. Really freakish. And the annoying thing is we've got to play all them teams who give us a spanking at home away at some point as well. So that's it. But it does mean that we've got that mini league of 10 teams around us to play home and away. And I think that to me, I'm not worried at all. I still don't think we're going to get relegated. Perhaps downgrade my enthusiasm pre-season for a top 10 finish a little bit. But I do just think I have 100% belief, and I've said this before, that he will get that right with those players. Charlie Taylor, 3 games Charlie Taylor's played, we've conceded 2 goals in that time, albeit 2 against Nottingham Forest, 2 games against Nottingham Forest, 1 against a poor United side. But we look much more solid. The club put out that video of Charlie Taylor's slide tackles in the corner, which is almost worth a Twitter account on its own. But again, he was the same. Very few wingers get passed into the byline because he's got that experience just to go, you know what, we'll give a throwing away. Don't care, we'll just give a throwing away. And you look at people like Dan Burn, you look at Trips, look at all these players who play in top teams who are doing well, and their fullbacks are doing that. Don't let them get to the byline, don't let them get a ball in. And every little bit, I think, is us just improving 1 or 2 areas of every game. So the passing about, sideways and backwards, etc., etc. But that, to me, is the evolution of getting them players used to playing the ball out from the back, because we were shite at doing it against City. I mean, O'Shea let it run out of play twice. So it's all about what can we get out of each phase. Disappointed we didn't create very much, but I think defensively we look solid. We've got to learn from the Johnny Evans ball over the top. We're probably not expecting him to dink a lovely ball over the top, by the way. But it's them little bits. Can every single game you break down into 100 different passages? Do we get better in them passages? So Bayer coming out with the ball, we're getting better. He's not losing it as much. But we can't stop him from doing that because he needs to do that more and more to get better at it. Does that then unlock the wingers to break beyond the lines? Because we've seen him do that. Ekdal did it last year for a goal where he slipped a ball in. I think it was the one where Brown had the effort saved and Roberts came in. So for me, if you look at it on a kind of forensic level, every little bit that we're kind of going, oh God, that's just a bit slow and all that, it's getting everybody used to what it is. It's that system. It might not be. That could be a load of bullshit that I've just been spouting. But for me, that's how I see it. I see it almost helicopter view. Every passage, we're trying to get better at. You know what I mean?
You put the case.
You're doing well.
I know. I was very kind of confident. The more I carried on talking, I thought to myself, that sounds like Einstein. Einstein.
You've got a degree in companyology here, so
of course I am. I back the big man. You've got to back the big man.
Justin, are you on the same page with all this? Are you seeing the same things? No, I think
worries? I'm a little bit less optimistic than that. I think. I mean, I know that 90% of talking about football is talking about what might have happened if something that didn't happen had happened. The bottom line is we've only got 1 point, from 5 games. That's the bottom line. My brother sent me a text this afternoon. He was all enthusiastic about this. We're only 4 points off 16th. No, hang on, is it 16th? 14th. We're only 4 points off 14th. And my response to that was, it's going to take us another 20 games to get 4 points if we go at this rate. I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that progress that company's talking about. I'm seeing them getting better. But as I said at the start, it's got to turn into points. It's got to turn into points because we're getting to the stage now where we're going to get left behind and we don't want to have a lot of ground to make up. You know, we don't want to be cut adrift at the bottom there. We want to stay in touch. And the only way to do that is to get points. We by all the stats last night, we were the better team. We had more passes, we had more possession, all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, the only stat that counts is how many goals you score. And we didn't score any, even though we quite obviously should have done. So I'm not pressing the panic button yet, but I am sort of thinking, I take what company says about it's getting better and performances count. And, you know, if we keep playing like this, the results will come. Well, we're getting to the point where those results have got to start coming. Otherwise, we're going to be in deep trouble quite quickly, I think.
Both?
I mean, as daft as it sounds, a win makes us all feel a whole lot better. And that win, it's that nous, that Premier League know-how. Do these players know how to win a game in the Premier League? Well, no, they don't yet. So as soon as that first one arrives, changes everything. But it's, like I say, I'd agree, they're progressing. They're looking more at home. You know, they're looking more comfortable. But it's, it's just that final couple of percent here and there. And, is that win going to come in the next couple of games? Again, Chelsea are a basket case, aren't they? But it'd be typical of Chelsea to do what Manchester United had done and turn up and one moment of magic, bang. But it's, again, like first goal is like Sean Dyche's goals change games. If Burnley get the first goal last night, it's an entirely different game. United have to come out a bit and so on and so forth. They got the first goal at Forest, and all of a sudden it's game on. You know, it's. And they got the second one, as we well know. But it's if you get the first goal again at home to Chelsea, then you're cooking with gas. It's just having that clinical edge. Like you're not going to create many absolute cast iron chances, and you've got to have to take them. And that's it. I think Foster's return can't come soon enough, really.
Woody, how's your mood about the Clarets?
My mood. I think somebody on Twitter summed it up quite nicely. They said, Burnley are a Pep side that don't have billions to spunk on strikers. And I think that pretty much sums it up. I'm in the progression, and I'm a lot less potentially suicidal than I was maybe after the first 2 or 3 years. I could see a Sheffield United coming. You know, after those 2 games, I thought we're going to wind up being whipping boys if we didn't turn it around. And we've turned it around to a better degree. Now, we've got to turn that dial a little bit further. And now we have to turn that into results. And we all know that. They know that. But those are those fine margins. So I'm optimistic, but still slightly worried. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same place. I'm just looking at the fixtures now then. So obviously Salford on Tuesday. Then it's Newcastle away. Not expecting a lot from that. Anything there's a bonus, isn't it? Then it's the Luton game on the Tuesday, the rearranged Luton game, which has got to be point or point.
Tougher game than everyone's making out to be, by the
Absolutely.
way. It's an almighty scrap to win there last season. Imagine, remember how obdurate they were at home. Again, they got the first goal and made life bloody difficult for us. So it's. It's no banker by any stretch of the imagination.
Then there's Chelsea at home, and then, which I think we can, even though Chelsea have been a bit all over the place, I think it's in a similar category to the Man United game, that one, isn't it? And then I think these 3 games are absolutely crucial. Brentford away, Bournemouth away, Crystal Palace at home. Those are 3 games we've got to be collecting points from. And if we come out of those with 3 defeats, then I'm really worried. But I'm going to wait until after that Crystal Palace home game, November the 4th, bonfire night is when I'm going to decide whether we stay up or not.
Let's put that marker in the ground.
Caesar is big thumb, isn't it?
I think that's a reasonable marker. I think that's a reasonable marker.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I think it's difficult so far because of the opposition we've played. But I 100% agree with you. You know, if you're going to stay out, you got to get points away against those teams, and you've got to beat them teams at home. And I think that's what we've always built on. You think about Sean's time in the, you know, it's beating Palace at home, it's getting something at Bournemouth, it's getting something at, you know, wherever, you know, getting something at Luton probably. Absolutely, if you offered me a point now against Luton, you'd take it. You'd bite their hands like we would do at point at Forest. You know, it's that Luton game is probably they're thinking this is a game we can win. If they're still winless by that point, I don't know who they've got over the next. I don't know who they've got next weekend because then their next game will be against us. But if they're still winless at that point, you're thinking, if they're not winless, if they've somehow got a win, and we've got a bit of a, you know, we've come away from St James's with nothing. Then you kind of go, right, they're 3 points ahead of us. It becomes even more difficult than to kind of go to Kenilworth Road and get something. But I'd agree with you, Sam. And I think bonfire night special.
We have to do it, don't we?
Could be depressing. Could be, you know, we could be 14th or wherever Justin's brothers got us by that point.
Could be setting fire to
Luton at Everton next week, aren't they? Yeah,
but when you look at the league table and see the 3 promoted teams in the bottom 3, this is going to become a debate. I'm sure Sky Sports News will be ramping it up tomorrow and throughout the week. It's going to be a talking point, isn't it? Has the gap, let's have this as a last topic to go around with, has the gap between the Championship and the Premier League grown in the last couple of years? Is it harder to do what we're trying to do now than when Coyle's team came up or when Dash's teams came up? Chris?
Yes.
I think it's a bit. Well, for how many years? When I was a lad growing up, the Big Six included Everton and it didn't include Manchester City. And a lot of people would say, why does it include Tottenham? Because they haven't won anything in my bloody lifetime. But that Big Six has become. I'm looking at it before. I mean, you're like Brighton are. You know, they're in the Europa League now. The business has been absolutely sensational in terms of like developing and selling on and blah, blah, blah. I think Brighton are assured of a top 10 place this season. You know, you're looking at, you know, West Ham have gone and won the Conference League. Villa are, you know, to all intents and purposes, you know, should be pushing for top 6. I'm not saying they'll get top 6, but they'll be in and around it. I think that Big Six is sort of blossoming out a bit, and now it's not that the top sides in the league have kicked on. I think that the entire league has strengthened. And you look at the money that Bournemouth have spent and so on and so forth. You're probably looking now to the relegation fights, probably between 6 or 7 at tops. And I think when Sean was here, I think we all really felt it could be any one from 10 or 11. So I think that middle group has probably strengthened to the extent where those games where you're thinking, we can nick something off today. You ain't getting anything off them anymore, I don't think.
Justin?
I think it's undeniably more difficult. I mean, I think one of the biggest differences is a lot of these teams now have really impressive depth in the squads. You know, it used to be the case that come sort of February, when players started picking up suspensions and injuries, a lot of these teams had struggled, but they've all got a lot of strength in depth now. And another thing that's changed is this idea that these clubs have got an identity. Like Brighton are the perfect example of it, aren't they? They invest wisely, and that sort of blueprint they've got, you know, allows them to push on. Like Chris says, they've all improved. It's not the top 6 moving away from everybody else. It's the whole league moving forward. And it makes it more difficult when you've got teams like City who basically have 2 teams of like world-class players. So injuries, suspensions, they can just absorb it in a way that the teams that come up can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we've sort of bought so many players, in the hope that, you know, if we do suffer those injuries and suspensions to key players, we have got a lot of numbers. Whether we've got the quality or not remains to be seen. But there's no denying that the whole league has changed immeasurably just in the last 2 or 3 seasons, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the fixtures, and it used to be that you'd look through during Sean's time. You'd look through and you'd say, right, we've got that little run of fixtures. That's why I was looking for those 3 games. But you used to be able to look through and go, right, we've got Norwich, Hull, and Bournemouth. You know that we've got to be getting 7 points out of those 3 games and stuff. But when you look through the fixtures now, every other game you come across one and go, we've got that Palace home game, and then after that it's Arsenal away. Right, we're getting note there, and then you go, oh, we're at home to West Ham. West Ham at home now is a really tough game. Didn't used to be that tough. You'd fancy his chances in the past. Sheffield United at home, right, we think we'll win that one. Wolves away, that's a tricky one. Brighton away now seems a really tough game. Then Everton at home, okay. Fulham away, that's a little run. But then you got Liverpool. There's never 3 games anymore that you can look at and go, that could be a little run. Greaves, your thoughts on the overall?
Yeah, I think Chris summed it up when he said that middle section has got bigger, stronger. Your Brentfords would be a guaranteed kind of relegation dogfight. Your Palace every year. Your Brightons for a couple of seasons were perennial, just about surviving. They have enough to kind of pull away when they mattered. But that's the toughest bit. And combine that with identity, as Justin said, we're trying to build an identity. I don't think we undershown the identity was solid, did a job. But Sean was always fighting with one arm or both arms tied behind his back due to the lack of investment. So he did really well with what he had. Hence the reason we brought in all these experienced campaigners who did really well for us, your Bardsleys, your Peters, who kept us in the Premier League. Sean worked miracles. Now we've got the double whammy of trying to compete despite teams like West Ham going on and winning European competitions and, having dodgy starts, but I think they're better focus this year, whilst trying to build an identity that moves away from the tried and tested. And that's the thing that could be the making or breaking of us. If he gets it right and we become Brighton, that's great. If he gets it wrong and we become a Leeds United, that's not so great. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? But that's the kind of thin line that we're striding at the minute. Building identity, but and trying to compete with everybody else's spending going up. We spent more than most teams in Europe this summer. Is it going to be enough? And I think that's the exciting ride, isn't it? We know these players. We were worried about kind of, we're going to be up shit creek because we've bought all these players, and if we don't make us money back, your Amdounis are going to bring you money back. Your Kolyoshaws are going to bring you money back. Your Traffords, we know, is going to bring the money back. So financially, we kind of feel a bit more secure because we've got this talent, these assets on a spreadsheet worth X or Y. It's then the on the field stuff which is the jeopardy for me.
Woody, leave us with some words of wisdom to wrap up this episode. When you look back on following the Premier League era, like going back to like when Coyle came in and we had those games and all that excitement at the start, how different is it, do you think?
Obviously quite a lot for all the reasons everybody said. But if we look at one, I think this is the narrative of the week. The bottom 3, the 3 that came up, etc. That's not going to be the same at the end of the season. So I'm not going to take much notice of that right now. Because if we look at, say, Brighton when they came up, was it 2018, whenever it was, whatever, they only just finished above the top 3, only just. And now look at where they are and what they've done, etc. So it's definitely still doable, and it has to be smart. And we'll see as to how that works. There'll be 1 or 2 whipping boys, etc., who are guaranteed to go down. But I mean, yes, it always looks worse from the bottom, doesn't it? When you're looking up, it always looks slightly scarier. Everybody's more difficult. Everything's a potential minefield, etc. And we'll let it play out. We'll have this discussion again, I think, in Bonfire Night, and then we'll can make a better set of assumptions, I think.
We'll do that. I'm liking this new improved Woody. I'm definitely feeling Vincent company about Woody's development and progress on this podcast, because it's like he's put the extra hours in and gone back and watched the game again. And
exactly,
it's been very impressive.
In the back cave at Barfield.
That's what you want to. That's what you want to see.
Exactly.
The worry is he's our new set pieces coach.
I'm just booting a ball at a beagle. That's all I'm doing. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, we'll be back on Thursday with another episode of From the Be All End. It's been great chat, and hopefully we'll have a win on Tuesday to talk about. We certainly expect so at Salford City in the Carabao Cup. Be interested to see what sort of team we play in that one. And then we'll be looking ahead to that nice casual trip up to St. James's Park on the following weekend. As usual, do follow us on social media at Beehole Podcast. And we say it every time, but it does make a difference if you can put a rating in there or a review on any of the podcast services. Great to see the numbers going up every week for people listening to this podcast. And we'll keep that going by people telling their friends about it as well. There's nothing better than sending a mate a WhatsApp and saying, hey, have you listened to this podcast? Thanks very much for all the positive feedback as well last week, especially on the Up the Clarets forum there. Some really nice words which were appreciated. Thanks very much. Have a good few days, and we'll speak to you on Thursday and Up the Clarets.